A marriage shattered, navigating betrayal and heartbreak. Here I am, lost in a sea of confusion and hurt. I've tried to articulate my feelings to my friends, but the right words seem to elude me. Perhaps pouring my heart out in writing will bring some clarity. Maybe some of you have been through similar experiences and can offer guidance. I'm not sure what I'm seeking, but I know I need to unburden myself. Please bear with me as I navigate this emotional storm. I, 30F, have been married to Mark, 33M, for almost 6 years. I met him in college and I thought we were perfect for each other. He was smart, funny, kind, and genuinely caring. We had a lot in common, and after dating for a couple of years, I knew he was the one. Our relationship wasn't perfect. We had our share of disagreements, but I always thought we could work through anything. We married after graduation, and everything seemed to fall into place. We bought a house, got a dog, and even started talking about starting a family in the near future. Life was good, and I trusted him completely. But everything changed a couple of months ago. At first, I didn't think much of it. You know how life gets: work, stress, bills, responsibilities. But then I started noticing small details that didn't add up. Mark has always been the type to keep his phone on him at all times, but lately he started leaving it around more often. At first, I thought it was nothing. But then I realised he'd always leave it face down, even when we sat together on the couch. He'd get defensive if I reached for it, just to check the time, or because I needed to use the calculator. He'd say, "Why don't you just use your phone?" Or, "I was looking at something private." That made me uncomfortable, but I didn't want to overthink it. After all, we'd been married for years. Trust is essential, right? Maybe I was being paranoid. But then there was the other thing. Mark started working late more and more. It wasn't like him. He works in tech, and while his hours can be flexible, he's never been one to stay late without a good reason. But suddenly, he was working until 8, 9, sometimes even 10 p.m. I asked him about it, and he'd always give some excuse about a new project, urgent deadlines, or critical tasks that had to be finished. He said he couldn't leave until everything was done. He'd promised we'd catch up over the weekend, but even then, he would cancel plans at the last minute because of work stuff. I'll be honest, I didn't want to confront him. I didn't want to seem like the insecure wife. I kept thinking that maybe this was just a phase. Perhaps he was just really busy. But my gut was telling me something was off. There's this feeling you get when you know something's not right, even if you can't explain it. Then came the night I will never forget. I had a feeling something was going on, so when I got home from work one evening, I decided to follow my instincts. Mark was in the kitchen, working on dinner. His phone was on the counter, face up, and for the first time in weeks, it wasn't locked. I hesitated for a moment, but my curiosity got the best of me. I knew I shouldn't, but I picked up his phone. I told myself I wasn't snooping. I just wanted to check the time or maybe the weather. But as soon as I opened it, I saw a message from someone named Hannah. The text was simple, but it hit me like a ton of bricks. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, babe. I missed you." I froze. I couldn't breathe. My heart started racing as I stared at the phone, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Maybe it was a mistake, a friend from work with a similar name. But deep down, I knew. I opened the message thread. It was full of flirty texts, explicit comments, and even plans for secret meetups. And then it hit me. The last message was a plan for the weekend. The message read, "This weekend's going to be amazing. Just the two of us. No one will know." I was in shock. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me, and I was struggling to process the suddenness of it all. I stood there, paralysed. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage was crashing down around me. How could I not have seen it? The signs were there right in front of me, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to face the truth. The feeling of betrayal was overwhelming, and I was struggling to come to terms with it. I couldn't think straight. I just sat down on the couch, holding his phone in my hands, trying to process what I had just found. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't bring myself to. I was numb. The next couple of days were a blur. I went about my routine, acting like everything was normal. But inside, I was falling apart. I couldn't stop thinking about the texts. I kept seeing those words, "Babe, missed you, just the two of us." I couldn't get them out of my head. Mark came home that night, acting like nothing had changed. He kissed me on the cheek, asked how my day went, and told me he'd be working late again the next day. I could barely look at him. I felt disgusted. How could he be so casual? How could he lie to my face like that? I knew I had to confront him, but I didn't know how. How do you look at the person you've shared your life with in the eyes and ask, "Are you cheating on me?" After another sleepless night, I mustered the courage to confront him. I waited until he came home, and then I asked. I didn't scream or cry. I didn't even raise my voice. I just said, "Who's Hannah?" The weight of those words hung heavy in the air, a silent accusation that I couldn't bring myself to voice. His face went pale, his eyes widened, and for a moment he didn't say anything. I could see the panic in his face. He tried to deny it, of course. He said I was mistaken. Maybe it was a colleague, maybe it was nothing. But I had already seen the messages, the photos, the plans. It didn't take long for him to admit the truth. He told me it had started a few months ago. He said he'd been feeling lonely, isolated even, because of how busy work had gotten. He said that I had been distracted and that he didn't feel like I was there for him anymore. He said it wasn't about me, that it was something he needed to do for himself. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was he really blaming me for this? Was he really going to try and justify cheating because he felt lonely? He begged me for forgiveness, swore it was a mistake, and said he still loved me and wanted to make it right. But how could I ever trust him again? How could I ever look at him the same way? The next few days were a whirlwind. We fought. We argued. He cried. I cried. It was a mess. And now here I am, sitting with my thoughts, trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to do. I love Mark, I really do, but I don't know if I can get past this. Can I forgive him? Can I ever trust him again? Should I try to fix this, or am I just setting myself up for more heartbreak? I feel so lost right now. I'm trying to figure out what to do next.